Economic Lessons from Books. Addicted to Reform, a 12-step program to rescue public education by John Merrow. Don't completely agree with everything in this book. Some of it, yeah. Let's pull out one section on ADHD that I do agree with. You do not have ADHD. Your child does not have ADHD. Only 15% of students have ADHD. That number is inflated. Only 5% of students have ADHD. Probability-wise, you probably don't have ADHD. If you did have ADHD, you would have already clicked away from this video. Don't click away right now just to prove you don't have it. Maybe you do. Just hang with me. The idea is that there's an issue with the brain, and that causes attention deficit hyperactive disorder. Students don't pay attention, they act out, they're hyper, they're high-strung, and it all has to do with an issue in the brain. Now, there is a proportion, probably 5% of students that do have this malfunctioning brain that causes ADHD. Problem is, that's just 5%. Where do the other 10% come from? Well, we're misdiagnosing people that probably don't have ADHD. It may be social causes, social behaviors, underlying root causes that are causing students not to pay attention and causing students to act out. That's not a student that you need to put on medicine. There's nothing wrong with their brain. They need help getting caught back up in school. They need a normal, stable life. They need something else. Their problem is not necessarily the brain. 15% of kids are diagnosed with ADHD. It's 3 times more than what the consensus believes. That means millions of students are not only being labeled with ADHD, but they're being pumped full of medication that their body doesn't need. You are changing the chemical balance of their body with medicine that they don't need. There's nothing wrong with the brain. It's probably a social cause that's happening. 20% of boys, 30% of boys in the South, 50% of boys in Louisiana between grades 3rd and 5th have been labeled and been given medicine for ADHD. You're telling me that based on where you live, those kids have more brain problems? Their brains, or maybe there's just social causes when you go to different regions. Maybe geographically, those areas correlate with lower income, and with lower income, you do worse in school. And maybe that's it. Maybe it's not the brain. Of course, there are some people that it does. There are issues with the brain. But what we're talking about is the misdiagnosis. All the people being labeled with ADHD that do not have issues with their brain. What is really happening here? Well, maybe it's that when you live in these specific areas, you grow up in low-income environments, low-income families, and when that's the case, maybe you're not also getting education at home that's causing you to fall behind in school. As you fall behind in school, you can't keep up with the class. You're in 5th grade, but you're only reading at a 2nd grade level. And so you're inattentive because you don't know what the hell's going on. You can't pay attention. Nothing makes any sense. You don't have any background knowledge. So you're bored, and so you act out. And so you're hyperactive, and you're messing around with people and trying to get entertainment because you can't do the math. You can't do the reading because of social causes, because of environmental causes. Nothing to do with the brain. We shouldn't put this person on medicine. It's not the brain. We shouldn't label them. We shouldn't jam them full of medicine. We need to help them academically. We need to find the root causes of the behaviors. And if we find the root cause, we treat that. No. Just jam them all full of medicine. What if the diagnosis has nothing to do with science, like I just said? Well, maybe it's social science. Maybe it's worse than social science. Maybe there's money. Maybe there's tests. Maybe that's the family that's causing these issues. Why? First, more numbers. 5.5 million children with ADHD in 2007. That's jumped up to 6.4. That should scare you. If it really was an issue with the brain, the numbers really shouldn't jump up. This is not a disease. This is not an epidemic. This is not a virus spreading to people. Why are those numbers going up? Because we're misdiagnosing more people every single day. That's more and more students that are being forced on medication that really don't need it, and it's going to get worse. ADHD is a behavior that causes an impairment, according to the APA. They want to relax the definition of this. Right now, ADHD causes an impairment, which makes it very difficult to live your life, makes it very difficult to go to school, makes it very difficult to get a job in the world and function day to day. It is a disability. They want to say, no. ADHD, if it's a behavior that impacts your life, that just changes your life a little bit. For example, in the book, John Merrow says, they want to make it so that, you lost your phone. Well, you had a behavior, you were forgetful, you lost your phone. Well, does that impact your life? Yeah. So boom, you've got ADHD. Now, maybe it's a bit of an exaggeration, but it's not. And that's really where we are headed when we allow a lenient lacks definition, then it's going to lead with more kids with this label. And more kids with this label is going to mean more kids getting medicine jammed down their throats, although they don't need medicine to change the brains. There are underlying causes. There are behaviors, personal behaviors that have to change, routines that have to change, not just jam them full of medicine and, let the medicine do its work. Well, this is the road that we're heading down, and it's going to get worse unless we do something about it. So right now, we are misdiagnosing ADHD. What are some of the reasons for this misdiagnosis? First of all, it's high-stakes tests. We're talking about the ACT, SAT. If you do well in the ACT or SAT, then you can go to a really good school. Problem is, it's very hard. Those tests are very hard, but everybody wants into these schools. So here's the trick. Now, this is not some, it's an exaggeration. This is a talking point. This is from the book, and this does happen in the real world. People are looking for an edge. People are looking for an advantage. Of course this is happening. So if you can get a doctor to say, oh yeah, look at you. You're hyperactive. You're not paying attention to school. Yep, something's wrong with your brain. Oh, did you get a microscope out? Did you take a blood test? Did you do an x-ray? No, I just did a couple check boxes and having trouble paying attention. Check. You feel hyper? Check. Yeah. You got ADHD. So here's what we're going to do. Jam you full of medicine. But it's worse than that, because once you get labeled with ADHD, you now have been labeled with a disability. You are a student with a disability. And a student with a disability receives accommodations and structure and support to help that student become successful in school. Regardless of whether this child was an A student all through school, well, now they've decided, got ADHD, you're going to need some accommodations to help you out because you're going to struggle in school. So one of those accommodations is that you get unlimited time during testing. Now, one of the reasons why the ACT and SAT are so hard, it's a time test and you're rushing to get all the answers in and no one can do it. Well, you can do it if you don't have a time limit, and you can get rid of a time limit if you can just get a doctor to diagnose you with ADHD. Sad, but that's where we are headed. And if you really want to get in those schools and say you're doing it the honest way, you need to realize that a lot of the kids that are taking the ACT and SAT right next to you and that are going into Harvard, they're not playing by the rules. They know the game, and they know what they want to get in the end. So don't do it. Another reason why we're getting more and more students misdiagnosed with ADHD. Why is our son struggling? Please tell us it's not our fault. You probably did a terrible job of parenting your son before he entered school. But, all right, it's not your fault. No one wants to blame the parent. So, probably it's your fault. But, you know what? If there's something wrong with his brain, that's what it is. The reason why he can't get his work done, the reason why he never finishes assignments, he doesn't pay attention, the reason why he's jumping up and down, it's not because he's years behind. It's not because you've never read to him. Now, it was his brain the whole time. You're not to blame. Whew! Thank goodness. Now, let's not let the teacher off the hook either, because there's also this side of it. This school is terrible. You're failing our son. It could be the school's fault. Maybe the school didn't do a good job of educating the child. The child fell years and years behind, and now the kid acts out because he doesn't know what's going on. No, it's not our fault. He's got ADHD. Don't blame us. It was ADHD. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Sounds like, looks like the ADHD symptoms. He's not paying attention. He's inattentive. He's hyperactive. Yeah, I guess it was ADHD. Sorry for blaming you, teacher. You see how this works? So we are creating these misdiagnoses by refusing to accept blame. Maybe the teacher could do better. Maybe the parents could have done better or do better. Maybe the student could practice some self-discipline and impulse control. Nah, psych. You know what? Let's just jam some medicine down the kid's throat. No one's going to take any blame. No one's going to take any ownership. No one's going to take any responsibility. Let's just blame it all on ADHD. It's that darn brain. Give him the meds, doc. Big Pharma also plays a role in this. If you label more kids with ADHD, that means you're going to sell more medicine. It's not that difficult, man. So in the book, John Merrow gives a specific example of how he helped kind of stop the ADD epidemic in the 90s, although it came back. So good job, John, but sorry, it ain't going anywhere. And just like if we get ahead of this ADHD epidemic, there's going to be another one. Anyway, so here's how the system works. Pharmaceutical companies give money to interest groups or lobbyist groups. In this example, it was the children and adults with ADD, CHAD, and that group of families and the organization, they would work to talk to the government, and they would tell the government, hey, this medicine's really good, it's really helpful, you need to approve it, you need to promote it, you need to make PSAs, tell people about it, it's wonderful, because CHAD sort of kind of really believes this, but they're also receiving money from the pharmaceutical company, so you don't know whether they're believing all of this. And of course, there's some people in CHAD that absolutely believe it, and Ritalin may have helped. But there's also people that know that they're getting money and they're doing what they're told. But either way, they go to the government and promote it and say, this is great. We need more kids to do this. This is changing lives. It's awesome. And the government's like, yeah, cool, medicine. All right, well, if CHAD says it's good and CHAD's really behind it, well, then yeah, sure. Well, it's not really that CHAD says it's good. It's that the pharmaceutical company gave money to CHAD. CHAD would say that. But the government doesn't really look, or they do know and they don't want to admit it. But either way, like, yeah, give them Ritalin. Ritalin's good. It's safe as aspirin, they say. Well, the parents, like, well, the government says it works. The government doesn't know that the government says it works because CHAD says it works because the pharmaceutical company said it worked. The parents don't know any better. And the parents are desperate. Their kids jumping on tables, swinging from the rafters. And it's years behind. Just do anything. Please give them anything. And you give them this medicine, all of a sudden the kid's like, I'm paying attention now. Why? Because the big pharma is making a bunch of money. They're desperate and they will do anything. And they can't get the kid to change. So then all of a sudden you're jamming the medicine down the kid's throat. Because the government said it was safe. The government told you it was all right. Yeah, well, that's not really what happened. Now, everyone claims to have an answer to solve the riddle or the mystery of ADHD. I don't have enough time to go into them, but I will give you one possible solution or at least one idea to think about. If you read William Glasser's Every Student Can Succeed, what we call ADD, ADHD, and ODD, obstinate defiance disorder, is the way children who have unsatisfying relationships with adults choose to behave. Let me say that again because I said that weird. It's the way children who have unsatisfying relationships with adults, how they choose to behave. He says it's all about relationships. He's saying there's nothing wrong with their brain. There's nothing wrong with these kids' brains. The problem is the kids are acting out. The kids that aren't paying attention. It's because they don't like you. They don't care about you. Mom, they don't like you, so they don't pay attention. They do what they want. Dad, they don't care, so they're jumping up and down and doing whatever they want. Teacher, I'm not going to do your work because I don't like you. He says it's about relationships. Yeah, look, so this is just one idea. I know you're like, oh, no, there's something else. That's fine. But let's just look at his example and the way that he explains it. So if you look at kids in kindergarten, first or second grade, I want to do good in school so I can earn a good wage, invest in a 401k, and have good health insurance someday. No first grader is thinking that. They're not completing their assignment. They're not learning the right numbers and counting the dots on 1, 2, 3, 4 and writing all that stuff down. And I don't know what else they learned in first grade and singing the songs. They're not doing that because they think that someday they're going to earn a living wage and be able to take care of their family and put food on it. That's not going through their mind. Kids are unable to fully grasp the value of education. They don't know. Kindergarten, first grade, second grade, even some middle school students don't really know why it's important or why it's so valuable to learn. They don't get that. And that's not the reason why they do the work. That's not the reason why they come to school. That's not the reason they listen to you or complete the assignments. The reason they come to school, the reason they complete the assignments and they do the work is because they like you and they want to make you happy. They know that the teacher is telling them to do this and they want to make the teacher happy, so they complete the assignments and they show up and they sit in their desk and they don't run around and they don't hit people and they listen exactly what the teacher says because they like the teacher and want to make the teacher happy. And the same reason why they do what their parents ask them to do, because they like you, they have a good relationship with you, and so they do these things. They don't really understand that if they keep doing them in kindergarten, first grade, and second grade, and third grade, they're laying a foundation that they're going to use when they get to middle school and then be able to grow. They don't get all that. They just know that they're doing it because they want to make you happy. And that's how the system works. And then when they get to third, fourth, fifth grade and get up there, it's no longer necessarily about that. They just want to make you happy. And if they don't have a good relationship, then they don't do work. And then they act out and they fall years behind and they act out more. And then they don't pay attention whatsoever. Let's just look at how the system could work. Kindergarten, the kid wants to make you happy, does all the work, continues to do all the work. And year after year, they're doing all the work. They're building this foundation. They're building the basic number system. They're learning their tens. They're learning all of the vocabulary that they're supposed to have and the basic informational text that they can read. And then they're doing everything they need to do. Eventually, at one point, they start to learn, oh, yeah, this is important because this is going to help me out someday. And when they have that realization, they can continue to work because they have all that foundation and they've learned all those fundamental things. Whereas the kid that doesn't like you, doesn't do the work, is crawling under the desk, is not doing the work, year after year, they're falling even further and further behind. So now you have a mix of they don't like you, and also they can't do the work because they're below grade level, and it just gets worse and worse. They don't like you, and then because they can't do the work and they're struggling in class, they even dislike you more. And so it gets worse and worse and worse. And it starts with them not liking you and not having a relationship and not buying it at the very beginning. And they don't buy it at the beginning because they don't like you. And so it goes up, and eventually the kid becomes a student who acts out, who is disruptive, that doesn't pay attention, and now they're years behind. And even if they decide that they do like you, they can't do the work. They can't pay attention. They don't know what's going on, so they act out, or they don't pay attention some more, and so they get further and further behind. And at that point, we label them as ADHD and we jam medicine down their throat, although there is absolutely nothing wrong with their brain. According to William Glasser, it all starts with the students not liking you. Maybe at these higher grades that if they start to like you, you can work extra hard and try to get some of that foundation, basic background knowledge into them and give them a fighting chance. It's going to be very difficult, but it's very important to him that you build strong relationships with the students, because when a student has a strong relationship, they want to make you happy, and so they do the work. It's almost kind of a bit of a scam, kindergarten through third grade, that they're just working to impress you, because you say, well, that's a reward system. That shouldn't really be. They should. The kids don't intuitively know why education is important. It's beyond them. So even though it's a scam of them just trying to make you happy, it's what works. But all of a sudden, that's the end. I'm running out of gas.